Say something funny, Bane, so I can stick in front of the QUACKCAST.
Something funny.
Something funny.
Something funny.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 562. I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Baines and Tom Serene.
Hello.
So this week, this is our last QUACKCAST before Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody who celebrates Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas. Happy all that stuff.
Happy holidays. And I don't know, all the other holidays that we heathens aren't aware of. But you have a happy one.
Happy Life Day. Is that what you wrote about in your news post? I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Festivus. Oh.
My strategy is that like you wish the person the same like joy that you have in the thing. So like if you celebrate Christmas, you wish others happy Christmas because you're wishing them like a happy Christmas, whatever. It's your culture and that's what you do. But if you're a Jewish person, you'd wish people happy Hanukkah, or if you were whatever other thing, then you'd wish that person that thing. Like for say Chinese people on Chinese New Year would wish you a happy Chinese New Year, even though they would know that you don't celebrate Chinese New Year. They would still wish you that, and you go, "Oh, cool. Happy Chinese New Year to you too." So that's how I think you should do it.
If I know what the other person is observing, I will wish them a happy, whatever it is that they're observing, if it's not like Christmas or whatever. Personally, I don't have an issue to wish whatever makes them happy. It's fine with me, because the point is that we want to be happy even a little bit in these days anyway. So yeah, and in Greece you don't really get that dilemma as much. The majority does observe Christmas, but we also have within the culture the wish for happy holidays goes together. So you can just wish that, and it's still within the culture, like nobody looks at you funny, and it goes for all religions.
That's good. I just wait for the other person to say anything, and then I just return the sentiment, regardless of what it is. This is not a strategy. It's just a. Oh well, yeah. Same to you. Happy Ramadan to you as well, my friend.
Yeah, it's all good to do that stuff. Yeah, but I think it's
awkward when they wish me a happy birthday and I forget. Not their birthday.
I think it becomes a problem when people are second guessing it too much. Just go with your gut. I think. Don't overthink these things. Right. So, in this particular QUACKCAST, we're talking about themes and literal stories, literal plots that have a bit of a mismatch, that don't really work together, that people are too focused on a theme.
About plots, we're talking about themes, we're talking about the space between.
That's what this QUACKCAST is going to be titled, Baines.
Love it.
The space between. You always come up with the best
themes, space between.
Title.
Do the whole rhyme.
I'm going to do that as the subtitle. The plots, the themes, and that's going to be in small writing, and the space between is going to be in big writing. So that's how a graphic designer thinks.
A very strange way to do it, but I respect it.
The plots, the themes, the space between. So,
I see. Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, as long as the space between goes last, then I can get my head around it.
So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. Baines' news post from Thursday, which is really cool. So, if you're not familiar with that, have a little bit of a gander and join in an active discussion there. Some really interesting points by everyone, but I think I made the best one about Hereditary being stupid.
See Oz going on and on about that movie he loves so much, Hereditary.
Oh yeah, I'll never get over how great it was. So before we get into all this exciting stuff, we've got to bring up the featured comic. QUACKCAST is gonna talk to us about Tiger T, which is such a cool little comic. Baines did a theme. Not Baines. Baines never does themes. Baines, why aren't you doing themes?
I don't like themes, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, that's a good point. Gunwallace did the theme to this because he does like themes, and so he composed the theme to Tiger T, and that was from a few QUACKcasts ago. But at the moment, we have QUACKCAST telling us all about why Tiger T is so good. So, Quai, take it away, Tiger T.
Oh, Tiger, Tiger T, Tiger T, Tiger T, oh, Tiger, Tiger T. Then while it's going to get sued.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Tiger T by Patty Wolf, and it is rated M for mature. An out-of-the-blue phone call is the catalyst that sends Agnes walking across the city in the middle of the night to check in on Lulu, a long-lost friend from the past. This impromptu visit involves singing, hot baths, drinking tiger tea, catching up on meals, and hanging out with a cat named Mr. Buttface. A story based on feelings and experiences of loss that are relatable to the human condition. The comic experiments with different monochromatic, restful color schemes. The layout is in a square 4-panel format. Take some quality time out of the day for self-care and read Tiger T by Patty Wolf, rated M.
And that was Quai talking about Tiger T. So next up, we're going to talk about the theme that Baines has given us. Baines has given us a theme to CHHT.
No, I haven't.
Oh, did I just say Baines again? Why aren't you giving us these themes? But what have you got against themes, Baines? What's your problem?
This must be a sign or something. I got to break out the old bass guitar and start writing some theme songs.
Yeah, break
Compete
out
with that guy. What's his face there?
Break out the bass, the C bass guitar.
It's Gunwallace theme song for one of my comics. I hope.
CHHT. Gunwallace has given us a theme too this week. So thank you very much for that, Gunwallace. And Baines, lift your game, man. Lift your game. So it's bloody 2:30 in the morning. Sorry. So seriousness, sadness, blue strobes, faded scenes, isolation, concrete and plain facades. The lights are dim as twilight approaches. Dim night closes in, and streetlights bloom, and with golden halos, two strangers meet in the circle of lights glittering on the wet road. So take it away, Gunwallace, with CHHT.
And the night closes in.
that was Gun Wallace's theme to CHHT, not Bane's. Bane's version's different. It's the director's cut. It's, he steps on the tail of the slug guy and all different things happen.
That's right.
It's a different version. Han Solo shoots first. Deckard is really a replicant in that version.
That's right.
But yeah, in this QUACKCAST, we're talking about how themes and literal plots can have a little bit of a disconnect in certain products. It doesn't just have to be movies like Danes. Your doppelganger. You gave us the example of The Truman Show and a couple of other things. But it's not only movies that do this. Comics do this as well. All sorts of things. They have a very strong literal theme. A very strong literal plot. And they have a theme. And then the plot really loses steam, or it doesn't make sense, or they don't follow through with the plot as much as they should, and the theme becomes the more important thing about it. There is a disconnect between those things. So the idea is we're not raging on films that are just about the theme. So like a David Lynch film, or something that is more symbolic, like The Seventh Seal or something like this, because in those products, the fact that the theme is more important is very obviously signposted in what you're watching, what you're seeing. You're never confused saying, "Oh God, this doesn't make sense." Why is in The Seventh Seal? Why is sort of this stuff happening? Why is it sort of a dream like? Why are people sort of dancing around and stuff? You don't get that as a problem because of the way they're structured. So this is more, say, you're watching Fahrenheit 451, which is a great movie about book burnings and the destruction of knowledge. And this has very, heavy themes because it's about the destruction of knowledge. It's about what happened, say in Maoist China, where they had the Cultural Revolution and they destroyed a lot of, stuff that didn't conform to the political ideology of the time, and they killed teachers and sent all the intellectuals to re-education camps and stuff like that. So that's what that particular book's about. And when you're watching it, the literal story is strong enough to stand on its own. They don't, it's not subservient to the theme. Those two things work together very well. It's not, freaking nonsense.
Yeah, you have a literal plot that's engaging. I mean, I'm assuming. I've read the book. I've never seen the movie, but it's been a long time since I read the book. Read the short story, and I believe, is there a novel as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I read the short story in the novel. But anyway, yeah. So it's a rare thing, really. It's a lot of work to put a story together and to have a literal plot that's satisfying. Also, you often need a theme, some kind of theme, so it means something. So you have a sense of, you feel it, when you see it, when you read it, it matters, So a theme is important. A literal plot is important to, just because it is.
It makes us run out of steam. Yeah. So that's the thing. So, my example that really annoyed me were things like Hereditary and Midsummer. So these are made by the same people, and you see the same styling in there. So in those, they have very obvious, incredibly obvious themes in there, and they also have literal stories. And the stories, as depicted, are not symbolic. these aren't like flights of fantasy. These things are meant to be literal. They're not meant to, you watch it and think, but that isn't meant to be, a depiction of what's actually happening. This is a symbolic action between these two characters. This lady doesn't like literally saw her head off with a piece of wire for like 10 minutes while floating.
Oh, really?
In
You
the
thought that
ceiling.
wasn't supposed to be? Oh, hold on.
No. She is actually the character is literally doing that, and that's meant to be part of the story. So all that stuff does happen, but the themes in the story are just a bit too obvious and too big for what the action is. There's a disconnect, and so it comes out as being rather clunky and funny, which often happens when you get stories where the themes aren't really don't really match with the story that you've got for it. So that was my opinion on that particular film. I don't know, can you guys bring up examples to further illustrate this idea?
I'm trying to think of ones that I have actually seen, but the only thing I still can think about is Squid Game.
Well, talk about it then.
Yeah, without having seen it still. So I may be completely off, but from what I have read from reviews and episode guides and blah blah, the whole shebang, the premise, like the whole thing, is meant as an allegory and an extreme visualization of the faults of capitalism, and that's fine. But if you take it, and I'm sure it totally works, and I know some of these actors, and they are very good. I'm positive they are doing an excellent job. The thing is that if you consider the premise itself, in the reality of our world, it could potentially happen. Like you could have this massive reality snuff movie game, because that's really what it is. But I'm not sure how feasible it actually is, and how feasible the ending I have read happens. I don't want to spoil it. Is either in the sense that someone can sort of go in and out of certain situations without facing mortal issues, let's say, assuming that you have such a strong underground, an underground mafia sort of level situation and arrangement, complete with full installations and huge areas where things happen, so on and so forth. So there are certain things that do not really compute the way that I see them on paper. Maybe if I watch it, I will forget about it, or I will see how it works. But it, like as an allegory and as a treatise, let's say, on the problems of capitalism, it works very well. But as a story in and of itself, like Battle Royale or something like that, it doesn't really work, because Battle Royale doesn't try to convince you that it's real. It's a real situation. At least I don't remember it that way. I remember it being a little bit sort of like a fever dream.
Hyper stylized kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. These deathmatch, well, I mean, Squid Game comes from deathmatch anime. That's the genre that it is feeding off of, and this this ground has been very well trodden for many years. There have been a lot of things that have been done in exactly that format, and the whole idea sort of relies on like massive forces moving in the background that would take gigantic resources in order to create these elaborate sets and things, these elaborate like camps and situations that is quite hard to set up. I mean, say like a film that actually does this for me, like what you're talking about, is the Mad Max film, the latest one, Fury Road, which is, so the idea there is like it's another Mad Max film. It happens in the Mad Max world, and you think, okay, so society is meant to have collapsed like, I don't know, maybe 40 years before this film took place, and it doesn't make sense. Literally, you can't create that amount of a post-apocalyptic infrastructure and these races and these weird clones and all this in 40 years, especially in the Fury Road film, when they've had this massive structure, that people are living in. The war boys come from this huge structure with this water that's hoarded on top of it or something, from what I remember. It's like a post-apocalyptic society couldn't have created this, so it starts to fall apart when you're thinking about it in a literal sense. So in that particular film, you have to sort of think about it as more of a cartoon that is divorced from not just reality, but the reality of that the other Mad Max films set up. The other Mad Max films were more realistic. The Fury Road one isn't, because it exists in a world that could not have been created in the timeline that the others are involved in, that are a lot more simplistic. The other Mad Max films are very kind of simple, but there's no real clever theme in that one. So it's just the world isn't. Just doesn't make sense.
Experience of it, the visuals and the style and the kind of kinetic energy of it is the whole point.
Yeah.
It's not really a plot or a theme.
It's eye candy. It's eye candy, and
right.
I was very surprised when I saw it that I actually enjoyed it this much.
I
went
loved
along
it.
basically because Oz and Pitface loved it, and I didn't want to be the blanket, and I said, okay, let's go do it. But I also loved it, so that was awesome. An awesome experience. Yeah. But as you were talking, I remembered an older movie that has a very strong theme and plays the story as a real story. And in my opinion, falls through in the end, because without wanting to cast shade to the writers, I also have been known to do it. They did not have the spine, let's say, to go the way towards there. So that limits a bit of the impact and the theme actually of the story. So anyway, the movie I'm talking about is called, in English, I think this is the right title, Extreme Measures, and stars Hugh Grant and oh my God, the other one is even bigger. I'll find the other one anyway.
Is it Anthony Hopkins or something?
Yes, thank you.
I don't think I've seen it, but it's familiar.
Yeah, it's basically the ethics dilemma, the perpetual ethics dilemma. Do you murder a few people to benefit the whole of humanity or not?
Mm-hmm.
What is the ethical thing to do? So the plot that they have devised in order to explore this question is that we have this doctor who is basically discovering the cure for paralysis, that he can make people walk again. So, I mean, people with spines that have been severed completely, there's no cure for them, but he is developing the technology, the medical technology, to make them walk again. But the way he is doing it is that he basically kidnaps homeless people who are not going to be looked for and performs all the experiments on them. And we follow, this is not spoilers because it's like a 30-year-old movie, or I don't know, it's old.
Yeah.
We follow Hugh Grant, who is a new doctor, you know, idealistic and stuff, and he accidentally comes across one of these victims that has escaped the secret lab and walks into the ER where he's you know, having a shift. He's an attendant, and that's how he starts trying to find out who these people are, because he finds a couple more as he digs. It's a very interesting. It's very well written. I highly recommend it if you like medical thrillers. And in the end, he actually finds out that this other doctor, who is a very high class, very well-established and well-respected doctor, has this whole underground network, where an underground clinic where he does all these experiments, because of course it is extremely illegal. And they are everyone who is in on this, and it's doctors, nurses, lay people, like everyone who is in on this is also willing to kill to protect this secret. So that, and each and every person has a motive, because each and every person who is in on this has a person that is paralyzed in their family, and they are basically waiting for the cure to be discovered so that they can have their loved ones cured. So they are not just there because they are thugs or something like that. So when the young doctor stumbles over all of this, they at first try to convert him by presenting the entire argumentation on why what they are doing is actually good, even though it is illegal, even though they are killing people very torturously sometimes. And of course, the doctor that is the main character presents all the other argumentation on why this is unethical, even if they manage to actually create the cure. And up until then, it's perfect. It's very realistic, because you can see how a network that is so underground and so well connected would work to basically blacklist you, to isolate you from anything. And, you know, nothing works for this poor guy. Like, you're very sorry for him, for the main character. And in the end, and I thought that was where the movie would end. He gets ambushed by his best friend, who also happens to have someone that is paralyzed in the family, and he wakes up in a bed and he is paralyzed from the neck down. And you think that they got him, and they basically used him as a guinea pig as well. And that was realistic, in the sense that they would not leave him running around. They would either kill him or use him, or, you know, what have you. But of course, then he realizes that it was a temporary thing, that the big doctor wanted to just scare him and make him, you know, through this fear, to convert him over to his side, and so on and so forth, so he actually can walk again and save the day.
Oh.
And, yes. and that was like, I was really happy as a reader, not a reader, as a viewer, that he could walk again, because I really felt for this guy. I like this guy. But the premise falls through, in that it doesn't feel that this is what would happen.
Right.
And it loses a bit of its steam. I still love the movie. It's one of my favorites. but it loses a bit of its steam because it has a happy ending. And I love this happy ending, but still.
Yeah, that's the contradiction. I know what you mean by wanting certain things as a viewer. Often you want a happy ending. You want the character to be all right if you care about them. But that, I mean, the ending of him paralyzed from the neck down, oh my lord, what a chilling and powerful ending that would have been.
Yeah.
Very 70s that would have been, that they used to do that in 1970 songs. Speaking of that kind of thing, the famous Blade Runner, of course, with a few different cuts of all different ways of doing it, and one of the most famous ones is the idea that Deckard was a replicant the whole way through, which wasn't originally intended, but that was the idea that that Ridley Scott went with in the end, because it just seemed that people seemed to like that idea, even though the studios didn't. The studios wanted a more happy, traditional ending, which is what they got. Ridley Scott was able to re-edit it later on and tilt it more towards Deckard being possibly a replicant, or the audience making up their own mind. But for me, when I watch the film, and you actually watch it as a literal thing, it really doesn't work that way. Thinking of him as being a replicant, so many things just don't make sense. So for me, that is a film where the theme doesn't match up to the literal action, because not only his thoughts and things, but the structure of the world doesn't make sense for him being a replicant. And there's a good point to that, because Ridley Scott, despite this is what originally intended, Ridley Scott back then especially was never a filmmaker who worked to a story. He started out in advertising, and he was amazing at creating scenes and imagery, and he was a visual thinker, and he used to just create scenes, and many of them, and then he'd get his editor to actually join them all together. So the editor would be creating the story. He wouldn't create the story. He would just have the visual ideas. So yeah, that's how it got kind of put together. So the whole idea of my whole idea was Deckard was originally the replicant to begin with isn't really the truth.
Yeah. Actually, in this particular situation, I think the best solution is never to get an answer on whether he was or wasn't a replicant.
Same here, man. That's the best choice in a case like that.
You don't know, and that's the point. That's the point, that you don't know. And just like they don't know when his lady, I forget her name again, would actually terminate. Like, they had no idea when she would die, just like immortals don't know when they would die. So, you don't know about Deckard, you don't know about her. They're human, period. Nothing more needs to be said.
And then Blade Runner 2029, I think that's the sequel.
I was going to say that one takes your side, which is also my side, and 2049, I think, maybe, or 2049, basically nixes the idea that Deckard is a replicant.
Yeah, he's still alive in that.
I think they acknowledge, there's a little bit of dialogue where they say they thought he might. I don't remember exactly, but it's a good movie though. And Harrison Ford shows up. He didn't die.
It's a good movie. I don't really see it as a sequel to Blade Runner. To me, it feels like another film in the Blade Runner universe. It feels like a possible, like this is a many worlds kind of thing. Like in some alternative world, this could possibly be a sequel, but it doesn't feel like a literal, okay, we stop here, then this is the next one. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels like another chapter from the universe that perhaps this is a sequel. And it's a weird
a lot of
story.
movies have taken that, what you're saying now. This is the reality of modern movies. get your flow charts out to figure out the Halloween franchise and how that all.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's a strange film. It's for me, it felt like a good Blade Runner type film in that it took a lot of the kind of imagery that the original Blade Runner had, and it created a film with that kind of 1980s futurism, which was a cool kind of effect.
Yeah, it feels like the same world. Like you said, a different story being told in that world. And the fact that you have the returning character that's there, but it's not the same story as the original, which is great as well.
Yeah, it's a weird film.
It's a little odd, yeah, but it's very worthwhile, I think.
Ironically, it's very anime, I felt, rather than
Yes.
so. You watch animes, especially from the 90s, and they're very cyberpunk because cyberpunk was all the rage for anime back then. So they were basically directly influenced by Blade Runner, and this Blade Runner 2049 feels like it's directly influenced by anime. In the structure, it's just so close. You know, it's got all the same things like the tough, sexy female that's a murderer. You know, that's straight out of anime. You know, the betraying bosses betraying people who are betraying people, and you know, hidden motives. All that is just pure anime. So if you watch it as being a live action anime, it's weird. It makes sense.
I want to see it again, actually. I'll watch this thing again. I liked it quite a bit.
Reminds me of I think there's an anime called Armitage, something like that. Armitage, and it is basically the live action version of Armitage in a way, which has the same kind of story as this film. So the idea is that a cyborg is created that will actually reproduce and, you know, be able to create life. So I think that's where they possibly got the story from. I seriously do think they stole the story from Armitage to make this film.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Well, that was a big important film. They had like big Hollywood actors doing the voiceover when they did the dubbed version. So it had, you know, proper Hollywood interest. Anyway, we're going off at a bit of a sidetrack there. Sorry.
I've talked about the Babadook in my news post. It was a horror movie, very well done, and none of this is to criticize the filmmakers of that movie because it was a wonderful, very scary, brilliantly acted, very well put together, as all these movies are that I'm talking about, like in the news post and everything. It's all well done, but it's like the films, like they give a shit what I think. But anyway, just to be clear, like this is not really a slam because it's very well done and maybe it played out the way they wanted it to. But that movie to me was an A+ until the third act, where they delivered on the theme, which was the theme of grief, but the literal events of the film became the allegory. So they resolve things on an allegorical level, but as a literal movie that I was invested in, it didn't work. Like it was a weak ending on that level. Although I understood the ending on the allegory level. So
Interesting.
there, that's the next one. I don't know if you guys saw that movie. But...
No, Pitface loved it. I remember. I think.
Yeah, I loved it until the end.
Oh.
And that bugged me. It made me never go see it again. But it was great and scary and cool up to then.
That's interesting. That is interesting because there are many films who are very strong literally, and then they just kind of bleed off in the end because, like, you know, Chance with your kind of thing, they just lose confidence. But it's in the other way. So they lose confidence in the idea of their ability to tell a literal story, and they think, my thematic ending is really all I need. That's my important thing.
A similar effect in a horror movie I have had with It Follows, which I really liked the premise. I was very much invested in it, despite actually I cannot really call myself a horror fan, although there are some horror movies that I really like. And that was going to get in that short list until the end. That is non-existent. There's not.
Yeah.
Like, it literally just stops.
Yeah.
Like the birds.
And the thing is, they say in horror movies, and of course it is correct, that the lesser you show about the monster and the monster itself, the better, to do the atmosphere, to make it scary. Yeah, okay. But you, as the creator, you have to know about the monster. You have to know what the hell it is all about. If you don't know, eventually it will show, and then the magic will be lost. And that's what happened with me, and It Follows. Like, it felt that they didn't know how to end it. They really did not know how to end it. They just decided, you know what, we will hit pause and pretend that this is exactly what we intended to do, and try to be intellectual about it. It's like, that's the impression I feel.
Actually, I feel the same thing happened with the birds. So that famously just shuts off. Like normally there would be, oh, this is the end of this act. We move on to this act, and they just.
Birds as in Hitchcock's, the birds.
Sorry.
Hitchcock.
Yeah, Hitchcock.
The birds. Oh, okay.
So
Have you read the story? Sorry.
No, I haven't read the short story. But in, say, the very famous film, which is a very strong literal story. It really is. There are symbolic themes in there, they're pretty obvious. But the film is a very straightforward literal story. And then it just shuts off, which is very sudden. It's extremely jarring. And there could be an argument to say, but it's up to, you to guess what. Do these people get out alive? Is society ended? What's happened?
The end?
Yeah.
Question mark?
That's fair enough, but it doesn't match with the rest of the film. It is an odd fit because the rest of the film is standard, straightforward story. Anyway, sorry, Tans.
No, I just want to say, as if I remember correctly, I have read the short story, The Bird, which is, as far as I remember, the movie follows pretty faithfully, like let's say 80-90% faithfully, and the short story finishes in the same way. However, the difference is, and that's the difference of medium, the way that, like, the scene ends with them, in the room, and starting to hear the birds pecking at the windows again, and in the end and stuff, and that's where it ends. But the way it is described totally gives you the hints where this is going. It's a fade out, but it is a fade out before doom, and you know that the birds have won. And society basically does not exist, and they easily are the last survivors that are going to be had. It doesn't give that impression in the movie because it doesn't show it the way it is described. So maybe that's the reason.
Yes,
an ending that works really well in a short story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in the film, the way the film is told, it feels very much almost like a soap opera. This is a standard kind of family drama. There's a bit of horror with these birds and what they're doing, but still it's pretty much a drama, what's happening between these people, this growing relationship between these main characters. And it's a super odd fit with the ending they chose. Don't really think it's one of Hitchcock's best. All right,
like artists knowing what it's about. That I would put David Lynch in that category, even though he doesn't ever explain exactly what his movies are about. Like a confusing movie like Mulholland Drive, I didn't know what was going on, but it's still like it's a hypnotic experience, and amazing. And I think David Lynch knows what's going on. And I saw an analysis of the movie that made me appreciate and understand that movie more. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in when you mentioned like the creator should know what's going on, even if it's not, explicitly
obvious.
said.
Yeah.
Or obvious.
It has to give this feeling to the audience. Like, okay, the audience might feel baffled, but they should also feel that they are baffled, but the author isn't. The creator isn't. The creator knows. You just need to sort of wade through and find it yourself. So.
Exactly. There should be like an obvious plan to it, even if you don't know what the plan is. You can. There's a structure. There's a reason for this and that. It's not just something that you're meant to. Like the easiest thing as an artist, like I had fine art training, and the easiest thing is just to pretend you have a theme, and just to say, "Oh, audience, you work it out. I've just painted a picture of a chair here on an orange background. This is whatever you want it to be. That's not art. That's that's giving up. That's pretending to be an artist. Being an artist is actually having a reason and having a visual language, trying to communicate in some way. And that's a skill. Anyway, so we have to finish because Google is trying to end us, people. So thank you for listening.
The end.
The end. The birds have got us. Damn it, they killed Pitt already.
What did it all mean? You'll have to figure that out for yourself.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.